The world actually has a hidden operating system. It's this whole set of rules that most adults, well, they rarely even talk about it. Most people only figure it out when they're much, much older. But you're smart enough to understand it right now. So, welcome to our Insider's Guide. I'm here to walk you through how the world really works, plain and simple. Okay, let's just dive right into this. Recently, this fascinating piece of news quietly slipped totally under the radar. SpaceX is reportedly teaming up with the massive cable network Charter to launch an entirely new type of phone plan. What this actually means is that Elon Musk's swarm of low Earth orbit satellites is actively preparing a secret disruption of the world order. They are directly challenging the traditional, heavily guarded telecom giants.
Honestly, it sounds a bit like science fiction, doesn't it? But it's happening right now. Literally right above our heads. Elon Musk's low Earth orbit satellites, they aren't just taking photos or guiding cargo ships anymore. They're preparing to totally steal the traditional telecom companies' lunch. I mean, for decades, those massive companies have controlled exactly how we communicate and exactly how much we pay for it. But now, a brand new player is entering the game, and they're doing it from a completely different altitude.
Let me break down the tech for you in, plain English. For your entire life, when you wanted to use your phone, you had to rely on what we can call Uncle Cell Tower. You know those big, ugly metal trees planted on the side of the highway or on top of buildings? Yeah, those. And if you go camping up in the mountains or out to the beach, or just find yourself in a random dead zone, Uncle Cell Tower drops your signal. Poof! Your incredibly expensive phone instantly turns into a useless brick displaying no service. It is so frustrating. But the alternative? Just look at the sky. Flying supercell towers. And the crazy part is, they require absolutely no modifications to your current smartphone.
Now, I really want you to focus on this exact term, direct to cell. Just think about that for a second. It's a technology that literally turns satellites into flying supercell towers, beaming signals directly to the standard phone that is already sitting right there in your pocket. You don't need some bulky special antenna. You just look up, and the signal comes straight down from space. This is a massive insider secret. It's a deliberate move meant to completely shatter the comfortable, highly profitable zones of giants like AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. They are about to have their game rules entirely rewritten.
But please, whatever you do, do not think this is just an American business story. When a space butterfly flaps its wings like this, the effect it creates is massive. Actually, it triggers these hidden shifts that vibrate across the entire globe, impacting everything from national economies to the whole world's digital landscape. Everything is connected. And understanding those hidden connections, that is exactly how you stay ahead.
So let's look at one of those major shifts. When the number of satellites in the sky suddenly multiplies, the ground stations that receive their signals must be completely upgraded, right? And who builds the best high-tech components in the world? Taiwan. They are essentially the parts major league. The microchips act as the brain of the satellite, and the antennas serve as its ears. SpaceX's insatiable demand for these high-tech components is this massive behind-the-scenes catalyst. It's almost like Elon Musk is calling up the Taiwanese tech manufacturing sector and saying, hey, get your absolute best parts ready. For the companies making these components, the orders are just flooding in, and an entire industry is quietly taking off.
And this brilliantly illustrates the second massive shift, erasing the world's digital blind spots. See, historically, connecting the whole world meant spending hundreds of billions of dollars. You had to dig trenches, lay endless underground fiber optic cables, and build massive towers everywhere. Because of that insane cost, a lot of remote villages and poor areas were just left completely disconnected. But once the satellite internet scales up, that final digital blind spot just disappears. Imagine a teenager in a remote African village suddenly being able to instantly connect and learn online. It is going to spark a global digital explosion that, frankly, most adults aren't even talking about yet.
Of course, a shift this massive makes governments very, very nervous.
To truly understand the international tensions at play here, I want you to imagine a secret, dimly lit vintage pub floating up in the clouds. Let's call it the Global Dog Pub. Around a long, heavy wooden table, different countries are gathered, trying to figure out who exactly controls the sky. And to make this geopolitical chessboard easy to grasp, without sounding like some boring history lesson, let's just imagine each country as a specific breed of dog.
So, the crucial point here is how these players interact with each other. Sitting right at the head of the table is the USA, our confident golden retriever. They're slamming a coffee on the table and declaring that they aren't just sharing the pie, they are writing the totally new rules for space communication. Over in the shadows sits China, the Tibetan Mastiff, just calmly sipping tea, quietly building a competing low Earth orbit network, absolutely determined to grab their share of the sky. Then we have Japan, the Shiba Inu, precisely measuring out their coffee. They provide the ultra-precise filter components. They don't need the spotlight, they just provide absolute, undeniable craftsmanship. And right beside them is Germany, the German Shepherd, tapping a ruler on the table. They are demanding absolute order, rational collision systems, and hard data to prevent thousands of satellites from crashing into each other.
But the scene doesn't stop there. Slouching on a velvet sofa over there is France, the French bulldog, sipping wine and complaining that filling the sky with all these satellites completely ruins the romance of looking at the stars. Suddenly, India, the energetic pariah dog, jumps up. They see all this chaos as a massive opportunity to use their highly agile software engineers to modify and adapt the ground control systems. Over in the corner, working quietly, is Vietnam, the Ridgeback, focusing entirely on the really hard work of assembling the ground receivers. And sitting right in the center, drinking warm bubble tea and reading the room perfectly, is Taiwan, the mixed breed. They act as the empathetic central hub holding everything together, because they know that no matter who wins up in the sky, absolutely everyone relies on their hardware down on the ground. Okay, I want you to take a slow, deep breath right here. All of those nations we just talked about, they are reacting to a shift driven by a very specific, heavyweight economic concept. It is the hidden law that actually runs the business world behind the scenes.
Let's demystify a big word that you'll hear thrown around a lot in business schools: oligopoly. An oligopoly is simply when a few massive companies, like the old telecom giants, control an entire market. Because literally no one else could afford to build all those cell towers, they just sat comfortably in their walled castle, setting whatever prices they wanted. They were perfectly safe. That is, until an alien disruptor arrived from a completely different angle. You see, SpaceX didn't try to build more cell towers on the ground. They attacked from space.
And this brings us to a concept called creative destruction. Imagine an alien predator showing up with a massive laser and just blasting the thick stone walls of that old oligopoly castle straight to the ground. That is exactly what SpaceX is doing. Creative destruction means using entirely new technology to destroy the old industry moats, forcing the old, lazy system to either evolve immediately or be completely wiped out by history. It's ruthless, sure, but it's exactly how human progress happens. So, why am I telling you all of this? Because seeing the world clearly is a literal superpower. While most people your age are just passively scrolling through mindless short videos, I want to give you a real-world blueprint to build your financial IQ. I want you to develop what we call cross-disciplinary thinking, so you can spot these alien lasers in the real world before they even fire. Here are 2 exact takeaways you can use right now. First, open your tech detective eye. Sometime this week, I want you to look up some companies working on low Earth orbit satellites or network components. You don't need to invest any money, just write their names in a notebook and watch their news and stock prices over the next 3 months. Watch how the real world reacts to the story we just talked about. Second, practice cross-boundary association. Next time your phone loses its signal, don't just get annoyed,
Close your eyes for a second and imagine a satellite flying 500 kilometers above you at thousands of miles an hour. What businesses, what countries, what technologies had to work together perfectly to beam that invisible signal right into the palm of your hand?
If you only take one single thing away from our time together today, let it be this: never just look at the surface. When everyone else is cheering for a shiny new rocket launching into space, I want you to be the one asking, wait, what are the traditional giants on the ground going to do to fight back? Because that is how a true insider thinks.
You know, you are already so far ahead of the curve just by being curious about how the money and the tech of this world actually operate. I respect your time, and I really respect your intelligence. The next time you look up at the night sky, I hope you don't just see empty, dark space. I hope your eyes shine with the wisdom of seeing the hidden forces and opportunities that are silently weaving our world together. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning everything, keep looking deeper, and I will see you next time.